Hello everyone, welcome to Mystery Mondays. I'm sorry I'm sitting at such an angle, but I think it might help my grandson to not be cranky if he can see me while I'm filming this, right? This is my third attempt at doing this. The first one I had him on my lap and it got really hectic, and actually I should have saved that one so I could have watched it. But anyway, the one I was just doing a minute ago, he got really super fussy, and yeah. Um anyway, it's not like he's being neglected, you guys. He was fed shortly before I started this, and he had a bottle which he threw under my bed when it got almost empty. That was when I was filming the first one. So he's just sleepy and a little bit cranky, and I'm sitting with my back facing toward him, where I was when I was doing the last one, and he couldn't see what was going on, so naturally he was being fussy. So y'all are not here to hear about him, or some of you might be, but you know, that's not the main reason. That's not the reason for this blog. This blog is about missing persons and criminal cases, or possible criminal cases. So thank you for viewing, subscribing, and sharing my vlogs and other videos. Today I'm discussing the case of Arman B. Johnson first, and we'll talk about updates to cases I discussed previously at the end of this vlog. I decided this because it's Tuesday. When I was writing this, it was Tuesday, April 27th, and I like to search for updates a day or two before I record my vlog, or preferably the day of, which is actually when I searched for most of my update information on other cases. An article from March 11th, 2015, published by KHON2, a Hawaiian TV station, reports on the case of Arman B. Johnson. He was 44 years old when he was found murdered in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park on the Hilo side of the Big Hawaiian Island. According to his autopsy report, quote, "He died from a single gunshot wound to the upper back/neck fired from a handgun," end quote. And that is this area right here. I know you can't really see my back. I'll do it on this side right here. It's like this area right here, you know, like between your neck and your back is where they're talking about. Contrary to what some sources say, he was not, according to the nps.gov website, and the vast majority of other articles, he was not shot in his skull. He was shot in the upper back/neck area. He had been killed execution style, but nobody knew of any motive for someone to kill him in such a manner or at all. Again, this is the opinion of this article. I did research, and that is not necessarily true. In fact, I don't feel like it is true. He was found on April the 13th, 2005, as I said, in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. FBI Special Agent Tom Simon, sorry, I almost said his name wrong, said their, quote, "evidence response team," end quote, was fairly certain Arman was killed within the park instead of being killed somewhere else, then dumped in the park, end quote. Reason I made sure to include that is because there are also a couple of things out there that state that his body was dumped in the park. Unless they read that on Reddit or something, I don't know why they would say that, because the nps.gov website and NamUs and the actual news articles state that he was not dumped in the park, is what the FBI said, and the local police also, I believe, said that they did not believe he was dumped in the park. They believed that that was where he was killed, was where he was found. And this article right here is from a TV station, but it's not as accurate as some of the others that I saw from TV stations. This one, as I said, was from March the 11th of 2015, so it was like a follow-up article 10 years later, whereas the other ones that I'm referencing were, one of them was from April something, I believe it was, of 2005. One was from, yeah, it was from April 17th, I believe, which was like 4 days after he was found murdered. Another one was from April 21st, and then one was from like July, I believe, of 2005. So those articles, the information from police and the FBI was more current, so it's more accurate in my personal opinion. A passerby who was hiking in the park found Arman's body, which was, quote, about 100 yards from the edge of, end quote, Mamalahoa Highway, quote, on the southern edge of the park near the 71-mile marker, end quote. And I was not going to include that part, but then I was like, well, I mean, people who live in that area that see this might see like a memorial type thing that they may have there for him may not know who it is for, so I decided to include it so that those people would be able to know that that is what it's for and who it's for. He was found in the Kahuku Ranch area of the park, which is a 116-acre ranch that was added to this national park, the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. He was found wearing a tank top, swim shorts, socks, and athletic sandal slippers, which I think are they say either slippers or athletic sandal slippers, but I think they're talking about the tennis shoes that are actually sandals. And I'm going to go let my dog in because, you know, life happens and she wants in, and she's been in a fairly bad mood herself. So y'all just watch my grandson play back here at his playpen while I let her in, if she'll even come in, because last time she wanted in, she ran off and didn't come in. Come on in. Oh, you still got your leash on, baby. Come here. Izzy. Come here, let me get your leash. I'm making a video. You hear me talking? You're like, what is that lady doing in there? Yeah? Okay, I forgot you still had your leash on. Joey says, what are you doing? Too bad I'm not doing this live, huh? People may wonder why I don't do them live more often anymore. What? Look at me on my camera. Look. I see you. Yeah. Okay. Found my place. Yay! It has now been just over 17 years since Arman was found murdered in the park, and the reward for information leading to the identification and conviction of his killer or killers is $10,000. He had moved from Seattle, Washington to the islands in 1984. Remember that. He, quote, lived on both the Kona and Hilo sides of the island, end quote. Along with his job at the local radio station where he hosted a reggae music show, he DJ'd it, Arman, quote, worked as a massage therapist at local resorts, end quote. He had a degree in sports medicine, which enabled him to give massages at resorts. Hi, Joey. So, yeah, I see you. His murder occurred 21 years after he had moved to Hawaii. Now, remember I said a while ago he moved there from Seattle, Washington in 1984. He was found murdered in 2005, so that had been 21 years. There are articles out there or blogs or, various things that say, I think I only saw two, but there are ones out there that say Arman recently moved to Hawaii, to the Big Island or to the islands from Seattle, Washington before he was killed. No, he lived there for 21 years before he was killed. And another one said like, I can't think of how it worded it now, that he hadn't been living on the islands long before he was found killed or something along that line, and that's just not true. He had been there for 21 years before he was found murdered. That is a long time. Long enough to definitely be accepted by most of the native people of Hawaii and be settled in and have a whole lot of friends, though apparently he was not really settled in, so to speak. I'll discuss that more here in a little bit also. The police who responded knew Arman, or at least knew who he was. At the time of his death, he was one of very few African American men living in Hilo as a permanent resident. Again, this is what this article says. I would not have considered him a permanent resident of Hilo. He lived in Kona and Hilo and apparently was couch surfing back and forth between the two places. So, he had recently, like 2 or 3 days before he was found murdered, moved back to Hilo and was planning to be a permanent resident of Hilo. I would not call that him being a permanent resident of Hilo, but that's just me. He was a volunteer with sports teams at a local high school, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. And according to this article, Hilo is near the park, which I will also talk more about here in a little bit. Arman had a few minor run-ins with police, such as traffic tickets and failures to appear in court, though this source does say most of his run-ins with police were minor, which causes me to wonder about the ones that weren't so minor. Just saying. I did try to do a little bit of research on this and was unable to find any information about any criminal record for him whatsoever. Generally, that stuff can still be found after someone is dead, so I don't know. He may have been charged with stuff but never convicted of anything. So it may have all been expunged or something like that. He had no drug-related arrest, had not committed any property crimes, and had no record of violent crimes. Now, when I read that, I was like, well, I mean, just because he hadn't been charged with any of that stuff doesn't mean that he wasn't doing any or all of it, you know. So police were shocked that this was him because, as I said, they'd had some run-ins with him, but nothing big. So they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe someone killed him, you know. Killed this DJ who everyone knew, even though at the time of his death, he was no longer doing the radio show, but partly because of the show, a lot of people knew who he was, right? As stated earlier, they did not believe his body had been dumped, even though he was found he was found not far from a trailhead, which is the point where a trail begins. So like the highway, you know, is right there, and the trailhead is right off of the highway. And I believe that that's why some of the articles said that his body had been dumped. It's because the people were speculating that he had been dumped since he was found near a trailhead. But authorities did not believe that, and part of the reason for that was because, according to a statement that was given by the man who found him, there was a large quantity of blood around his head. So, his head area. So they believed that that was actually where he had been shot. And now I have lost my place again. It's unknown whether his wallet, jewelry, or other valuables were missing, perhaps because this is information his killer would know. Most likely. Ouch. His murder was only the second homicide to ever happen within this park. That's why the FBI is so involved in it, because the National Park Service that works within the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park just did not have the experience or possibly even the manpower to do a case like this. Trying to make sure that he can see me if he wants to, but he's currently sitting not facing toward the camera or the phone at all. Are you okay? You mad at the elephant? Arman drove an old, beat-up car, according to what his friends told FBI agents. Apparently, the FBI agents thought he seemed out of place in the park since he lived in town and no car was found near the trailhead. So they speculate that he went there with someone else, which I think is probably true. Though I stated earlier that Hilo is close to the park, and I told you guys I'd tell you more about this here in a bit, and I'm about to. It is certainly not close enough to walk or jog to, as it is about 23 miles from there as the crow flies, and that's per Alexa. The ranch, which is the area of the park that he was found in or near, is about a 45-minute drive from Hilo and approximately 30 miles from Hilo, from the town of Hilo. So that's not close at all, and that's per Google Maps, because she didn't want to help me with that. Anyway, so it's not very close at all, in my personal opinion. Somebody must be sleepy. The FBI believed Arman had to have been brought to the park by his killer, as I stated a second ago. Though his car hasn't been found to date, so it is possible, in my opinion, he was carjacked and killed execution style. Carjackers do not care about the life of the person they carjack, and often don't care about the condition of the car. They don't care what it looks like, how it's running, whatnot and the other, as long as it is running, basically, since they tend to work for chop shops anyway, or someone who sells them to the chop shops. Again, I'm just stating my opinion as to what may have happened. Agents and police thought someone in Hilo had to know who committed this crime. I am sure someone on the Big Island, other than his killer, did know who killed him. Probably still does. Criminals talk to their friends and loved ones about their crimes most of the time. So, someone else does know, and the killer definitely knows. It does seem he was a target, but was he? Or was he murdered execution style in a random crime, such as I said, maybe a carjacking? This isn't generally done in random crimes, but it sometimes is. Hi, Joey. He's like, huh? Agents did get thousands of tips, some concerning his careers and personal life. They learned from his college classmates that he hung around some Hawaiians in college in Washington State and became intrigued with the culture. Also, and I believe two of his college classmates who told the authorities this were actually Hawaiians, because they were both people that he lived with. I think, well, he stayed in one of them's mom's house, I believe, in Hilo, and he stayed with the other one, also in Hilo. So, also, the authorities learned he worked as an aide to children with autism. He volunteered at the high school as an athletic trainer in his spare time. And remember, I told you guys that he volunteered to help children with sports at the high school or something like that earlier. And this is my additional information about that. It's just, you know, he was an athletic trainer in his spare time at that local high school. He also worked as an aide to children with autism. So, as much as I hate to think it, little and say it, he sure spent a lot of time working with children for a single man who worked as a massage therapist at local resorts and hosted a reggae radio show. Though I, in more research, did find out that he only did the radio show on weekends. And I don't know that he ever worked full-time as a massage therapist, and a lot of the massage therapy he did for free. There was an article by a local newspaper, I believe it was, that they interviewed a lot of his friends, and they said that he was known to visit people's sick loved ones who were dying, who were about to die, and he would visit them for weeks and give them free massages to try and help them feel better because they were about to die. I hope there's not more to that than just that. Nobody probably knows unless someone walked in and caught him doing something that he shouldn't have been doing, you know. Or, I mean, you know, who knows. But honestly, with all he did, I said, I don't see how he has any spare time. And then as I said, you know, I guess neither of his jobs were full time though. And actually, he only did the radio show for like 2 years. So that freed up and he was only doing it on weekends. So he had more free time than I was thinking that he did at this time, to be able to volunteer to do stuff. He moved to the islands when he was 23 years old, so probably immediately after college. And, you know, he had gotten that great interest in their culture while he was there. And, you know, I always practice to see how long these are going to be. And my practice thing said this was going to be maybe 31 minutes long, and I'm not even close to being done. But anyway, had to let the dog in, have to mess with the grandbaby. I'm just going to have to start recording these at some other time, not on Mondays. Anyway, that being said, after living in Hilo for many years, Arman had become very involved in the community, including joining an organization called Solid Rock Ministries, which is an Assembly of God Christian church located in Kona, Hawaii. And interestingly, it seems as though Kona was his sore spot, his weakness, the place that got him in trouble, even though that is where he was attending church. He made friends there and joined the Hawaii Club, which was not common for non-natives to do. And as I said, he had been there for like 21 years, shortly before he died. I don't know when he joined this club. It may have angered some of the natives that he had joined the club and was allowed to join it. I don't know, because as I said, you know, he had been there for quite some time and he had several friends who were Hawaiian. So I don't know that that would have been the case at all. He participated in local events and graduations as a hula dancer after taking hula lessons, which I think that he may have done through the club at the church, if I recall correctly from my research. The staff at the radio station where he had worked described him as having a, quote, booming voice and larger-than-life personality, end quote. Mondo Lopez was his disc jockey name. His friends said he came up with that because he's because he has a creative and fun personality. And I'm like, well, I mean, Mondo Lopez, you came up with that because you have a creative and fun personality. I hope you didn't make some Hispanic people mad because you chose that to be your name for a reggae music show. What is going on, Joey? He said, well, I'm sleepy. He said, well, I'm sleepy. Yeah, hopefully Grandma will be done here in a little bit. I'm sorry, baby. He worked at resorts in various towns all over the island, giving massages. Therefore, I am not sure which town he may have been in before he ended up at the park. But if he went to the park on his own, what happened to his car? Why has it never been located to this day that I'm aware of or could find proof of? I highly suspect someone did take it to a chop shop, though I did also see stuff that stated that it's probably, and this was on Reddit, that it's probably in the bottom of the ocean or in the bottom of a volcano. And I'm like, I mean, how would you drive a car up to a volcano and drop it in if the volcano's active? Anyway, he seemed to really enjoy and appreciate his life. This is my opinion based on what his coworkers and friends had said shortly after his death, which is more than I can say, which is more than can be said for most people, or many people anyway. His friends told a local television station that Arman did use drugs from time to time, but they didn't think that by itself accounted for him being killed execution style in cold blood. But it could have, in my personal opinion. Did he owe a drug dealer money? Or had he perhaps started dealing himself so he could have more money? It's hard to know. I mean, he can't tell us, right? His friends felt that he had zero enemies, the majority of his friends, that is. Some people he had lived with, and this is, I believe, actually the couple that he was about to move in with in Hilo who said this. They said there could be a different side to him, as is often the case with people who use drugs, even if they are only using sometimes. Like what they call recreational use or whatever, you know. In fact, these friends had recently asked him to move to Hilo because, quote, his drug habit may have gone a bit deeper than most people knew, end quote. Sadly, that's often the case. Someone getting harder into drugs, using harder drugs and using them more often, and their family and friends not realizing how bad it has gotten. They hoped to get him away from his drug use in the town of Kona. So as I said, Kona appears, that's where he was going to church and had joined this Hawaiian club thing. And that appears to be where the majority of his drug use and problems took place, instead of Hilo, where he was living when he got killed. A friend from college told agents he let Arman live in his mom's house on the Big Island for 4 years when Arman first moved to Hawaii. He stated that Arman was a hard worker and never destitute, living on the fringe of society or homeless, though he did sometimes give people who had been through hard times or were going through hard times free massages, even though it affected his own finances. And as I said, he was actually couch surfing around the time that he got murdered. So that is considered to be homeless. And a lot of people would say that he was probably destitute because he could not afford his own place and felt that that was what he needed to do. And I was reading this, and I'm like, wait, so this guy lived on the Big Island in Hawaii for 21 years, had at least 2 jobs that he did, that he received pay for, but he could not afford to get his own place. He had to be doing drugs or something, And they did say that he was actually doing drugs and was fairly um, heavy into that, apparently, according to these two friends. Before his death, Arman had been basically couch surfing, as I just said, and staying with various friends off and on, which drug users often do because they can't afford their own place, or they're staying with people who have drugs that, or money they can get for drugs, or something along that line, right? Something they can get like food or, you know. On April the 11th, 2005, which was 2 days before he was found dead in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, he had moved back to Hilo and told friends, some friends who had saw him there, he was happy there and planned to live there permanently, which is why I said I suppose it could have been considered him being a permanent resident there, but living there 2 days doesn't make you a permanent resident, right? And he had just moved back from Kona, so. His murder took everyone who knew him by surprise. That's what this article says, right? Well, I'm thinking at least one person wasn't surprised, and possibly a few people weren't. A decade after Arman's death, the FBI announced they are still actively working his case. So this was in 2015, right? In hopes someone wanted to clear their conscience since so much time had passed. Now it's been 17 years, a little over 17 years, right, since he was murdered. So if you were involved, you know someone who was involved, you think you know someone who was involved, call the FBI in Honolulu or the National Park Service and let them know. Of course, they didn't tell the public what evidence. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even read that part yet. They also said they have ample evidence from the crime scene to make an arrest and seek a conviction. But of course, they don't want the charges to fall apart. It's like with the Gary McCullough case. They said they had enough information to do that, but they don't want to take it to trial and end up not being able to actually get the person convicted. Of course, they didn't tell the public what that evidence was, primarily because the public doesn't need to know. That's actually in 2015 when the reward was increased to $10,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction in his case of his killer or a possible accomplice. And I don't know how much the reward was before that time, but in 2015, the FBI announced that they increased the reward to $10,000. It was the 10-year anniversary of his death. There have been several theories concerning what occurred, but no suspect or suspects. And the true story of Arman's murder remains a mystery. Some of his friends suspect Arman drove his car to the trailhead or ranch because someone lured him there, then murdered him, like lured him there in order to murder him. They speculate there had to be an accomplice because someone drove Arman's car from wherever it was parked. Honestly, one person may have asked him to drive them there or go there with them, which is what, the FBI and local police are saying they believe did happen, is that someone asked him to go there with them and then killed him. Sadly, in my opinion, odds are Arman knew his killer and went to the park with that person or those people. Seems a little odd to me that these friends of his seem to want authorities to believe he drove his own car there. Did they drive him there? Or at least one of them? Where is Arman's car? I'd like to at least know what kind of sedan he drove. And I'm sorry, folks, I have a sneeze coming in. I have a sneeze coming in hot and heavy. Ooh. Definitely not going to hit that 31-minute mark, am I? Anyway, take a drink and see if it'll keep me from sneezing. Whew, I don't know though. Cedar pollen is high because of the rain that we had today. And so, yeah, I'm allergic to cedar pollen. So, his murder seems personal to me. Most of the time, if someone is shot execution style, it's very personal. Were some of his friends selling him drugs? Did he owe someone a lot of money, either for drugs or because he had bought drugs? Like, maybe he asked someone if he could borrow $300 or something, and they were like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, you can borrow $300, just get it back to me when you can. And then he never paid them back, and he had used it for drugs. Possibly, I don't know. Were drugs even the motive? Possible that they weren't. There are so many questions concerning this case, but I'm sure the FBI has many of those answered. There are so many questions concerning this case, but I'm sure the FBI has many of those answers by now. I was going to say answered, but yeah. Answers. They have the answers to many of those questions by now, I feel like. Slightly more than 17 years later, I'm sure they have a lot of answers. They're just not letting the public know how much they know, right? Would someone wear athletic slipper sandals, which I'm not 100% sure what they mean by that, but if it's the kind that I'm thinking of, there's actually very little open space on them. The main space would be in the heel area, but still not much space back there. But would they wear those types of shoes, athletic slipper sandals, whatever they are? I guess I should have Googled them, huh? But would they wear them in a park with volcanoes in it? The ash? The volcanic rocks? I just don't know. Hopefully, someone comes forward soon and his family and friends get the answers they need and deserve. Even if this person is his friend, if you truly honestly considered yourself to be his friend or his friends and you did end up killing him, please by all means turn yourself in so that his other friends can know who did this to him, and any family that he may have had can also know. There were a lot of people who knew him, right? Arman B. Johnson was found murdered from a single gunshot wound to his upper back/neck on April 13th, 2005 in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. He was 44 years old at that time and loved his life, or he seemed to. The weapon he was killed with was a handgun. He apparently only did his reggae music show, I believe I stated this earlier, on weekends from 1987 to 1989. There are no months given there, but he did it for about 2 years. Possibly had a 2-year contract with the radio station to do it on weekends. At the time of his death, he had no fixed address, but had gone back to stay with one of his married friends in Hilo, whom he'd stayed with for 2 different 5-year periods before. This friend and his wife invited Arman, almost messed up his name. They invited Arman to stay with them to help him kick his drug habit. You okay, Bubba? Okay. So yeah, they invited Arman to stay with them in Hilo to try and help him kick his drug habit, so to speak, because the people apparently that he was getting drugs from or using drugs with were the people in Kona, it appears. If you have any information about Arman's case, please contact the Honolulu FBI at 808-566-4300 or the National Park Service Investigative Services Branch, which I have 2 phone numbers and an email address for. Those phone numbers are their tip line, which I believe you can text or call at 888-653-0009, and their silent witness line at 928-638-7840. Their email address is nps_isb@nps.gov. When I practiced this, I was at 19 minutes at this point. Now I'm at 40. Anyway, I'm just saying. It's ironic, and I think I rounded that up a little bit if I recall correctly. Of course, I was dealing with the grandbaby and the dog, and life always throws me roller coasters, guys. Now for updates. As I reported last Monday, authorities, or at least the private investigator hired by Kylan's dad, say they had reports of gunshots and screams at 11:35 a.m. on Saturday, August 14th, 2021. This is concerning the Kylan Schulte and Crystal Turner case. The private investigator hired by Kylan's dad said they had reports of gunshots and screams at 11:35 a.m. on Saturday, August 14th, 2021. It is now believed that is when Crystal and Kylan were shot and killed. If you were in the LaSalle Mountains area around 11:30 a.m. through 1 p.m., or even 11 a.m. through 1 p.m., possibly even later than that, you may have seen their killer or may have pictures or videos of their killer. Check those dash cams, people, if you were in that area on August the 14th around, well, I would say anytime that day. Go ahead and check them. But if you were specifically there around 11 a.m. or 11:30, 11:35 to 1 p.m.-ish, or just 12:30-ish, even, check those dash cams. You may recall a car driving fast and reckless sporadically and such, or maybe even far too slow. Like, going super, super slow because you don't want to get stopped and get in trouble for something. You know what I'm saying? Come across those types of people a lot, don't you? Even if you don't have video or pictures of a person or car acting oddly, you can describe them to authorities if you do recall something along that line. Perhaps an employee somewhere saw a person wearing clothes with red spots on them or brownish spots that they thought may have been blood. You can describe that person and perhaps their clothes to authorities, and then they can maybe, well, this far from that time, they probably wouldn't be able to get any surveillance footage, but people may still have some dash cam footage or video footage that might have the person in it. The wedding in that area took place on the 14th, just across the county road from where the murders happened. So it is said that they have audio recordings of shots being fired, and possibly screams as well. And so my thought is that video footage is, or the audio is from the wedding videos. This person's crime, I said his, but I don't know for a fact that it was a he. This person's crime was disorganized, so he probably left in a hurry and was still behaving in a disorganized manner. And now that I think about it, I think it was a man because I'm pretty sure that they had both also been raped, unfortunately. There was a black Econoline van very near their campsite, and though it is said that van appeared to have been abandoned, I have to wonder if it belonged to their killer or at least to this creepy man, because they said he told them this was his turf, his space. He's like, you have to leave. This is my turf. This is my space. You cannot be here. You have to leave, is what they told the woman who had seen them. She reported that she had seen them early the morning of August the 14th, and they were bragging about Kylan finally learning to drive the motorcycle. Maybe this person slept in the van but had another vehicle, and perhaps he cleared the Econoline van out before he left. Kylan and Crystal had been married almost 4 months when they were killed. Whoever did this is sheer evil. So, if you live, work in, or were visiting Moab, Utah in mid-August 2021, please think about people you noticed or know who seem pure evil, especially those who seem to hate homosexuals, lesbians, gay marriage, or women in general. Perhaps even those who seem very unhappy and like maybe they don't like anyone at all, including themselves. If you have any information that will find the killer or killers of Crystal Turner and Kylan Schulte, please contact the authorities. The National Park Service Silent Witness line is 928-638-7840. You may call the FBI at 800-CALL-FBI, that is 800-225-5324, or the Grant County, Utah Sheriff's Office at 435-259-8115. The number for private investigator Jason K. Jensen is 801-759-2248. Of course, you may also contact the National Park Service Investigative Services branch, because this did happen in a national park, at 888-653-0009. That is their tip line, which I believe you can text or call tips to. And their email address is nps_isb@nps.gov. And I'm going to try to put this information in my description for the vlog, though I am having major laptop issues still and all sorts of stuff. So, there was something else that I was going to say. Oh yes, I had wondered if the person who had been considered a person of interest who would not allow police to search his vehicle, but they decided that he wasn't connected to it. I had been wondering if he was possibly a certain friend of my son's who, sadly, in March, this person moved to Ohio, and it's my understanding the person that got stopped had Ohio tags and had recently moved to Moab. But so this person was back in Ohio, or was in Ohio at least, in March, like March the 15th, I believe it was. He overdosed, and his obituary says he's 26 years of age, and they said that the person was 27 years of age, so I guess it wasn't him. But my thought was that if he was the person that got stopped and now he has died from a drug overdose, perhaps the authorities could get access to his vehicle and search it to totally completely rule him out, or not, But As I said, sadly, he passed away from a drug overdose back in March. There are no updates that I could find, at least, on the cases of Josue Dameron or of Josue Calderon or Aubrey Dameron. I probably should have waited till tomorrow to do this, shouldn't I? Richard Judd and Joel Thomason are still missing in Yosemite National Park. Judd has been missing since July 25, 2021, when he took a day hike from his campsite near Lower Merced Pass Lake. He was wearing a blue shirt and gray pants, carried a navy blue day pack, and was using white trekking poles to aid his stability during his hikes. Richard was 69 years old when he went missing and 5'11" tall. If you hike that area of Yosemite or any area of the park, keep your eyes open for those white trekking poles and his gray pants. If you find anything, those are the things I think would be easiest to spot, by the way. If you find anything, leave it in place, take pictures, and note your location using your coordinates. Then notify the National Park Service's Investigative Services Branch tip line or silent witness line. Or you can also notify Yosemite Search and Rescue, and I will have that information for you after I finish telling you more about Joel Thomason's case. And I plan to do an update on Aubrey Dameron along this line, at least reminding people how long she's been missing and some of the facts concerning her case. Thomason went missing September 6, 2021. He was in the Army Reserves and had a lot of equipment with him. Most notably, the ones that I feel would stand out the most are his U.S. Army Steel Cup dated 1918, which has to be extremely rare. His bright red inflatable kayak, which looks more burgundy-ish colored to me. His black and yellow collapsible sink, a Petzl Zipka headlamp, a yellow bear can. Those of you who camp and hike know what that is most likely. It's bright yellow from what I've seen. And rubber. A Garmin Tactics Delta Solar GPS watch, which I'm really wondering what happened to. It's solar. It should be able to operate on the sun, so that causes me to feel like he got lost in a bunch of trees or something, or perhaps fell into the water. And his bright green mummy sleeping bag. Excuse me. Almost done, or I'd start over again. I'm so sorry this vlog is turning out to be so long, guys. I really am. And as I said, his kayak to me looks more burgundy than bright red, so I feel like it might not stand out as much as we're trying to make it seem like. Well, I can't even find anything that's bright red that looks burgundy also. This right here is burgundy. Well, you know what? Right here. This peanut butter lid is more of a bright red, though my camera may not be real good and you may not be able to tell the difference. But anyway, that being said, the tip line phone number for the National Park Service's Investigative Services Branch, again, is 888-653-0009. You may text or call it, and their email address is nps_isb@nps.gov. The following are the phone number and email for Yosemite Search and Rescue, which you can contact concerning either the Joel Thomason case or the Richard Judd case. Their phone number is 209-238-7046, and the email is yosemite.search.rescue@gmail.com. Yosemite is spelled Yosemite. And again, that's yosemite.search.rescue@gmail.com. And I will try to put this in the description, though it probably won't be right after I post the vlog. So you'll probably have to go back and look at it again if you come across any information and need to contact the authorities. Though if you're in the park, you should be able to do that very easily, I would think. And the phone number for the National Park Service Silent Witness line is 928-638-2248. As far as I know, there are no notable updates to any of the cold cases of missing persons within national parks in the United States. But I tried to access their website numerous times and kept getting an error, a timeout error, by saying my connection was not safe and stuff along that line. And I'm like, I mean, it's a list of missing persons within national parks. I don't understand why it was giving me that error code. But anyway, so I was not able to really check up to see, but I checked yesterday evening around 9:30, I believe it was. That would be Sunday evening around 9:30, and there have been no updates to any of those. There have been no notable updates to Jason Lirrell's case either. Next Monday, I will discuss the rest of the information I have on Jason Dubois' death, so make sure you tune in for that. And I have been told that his birthday, ironically, was May the 9th. So that's ironic that that was the day that I was like, I'll not do that this next week because I need to do Arman's case, but I'll do it the week after. And it just so happens that that date falls on Jason Dubois' birthday. Very ironic. Until then, everyone have a great whatever time of night or day it is in your part of the world. Sorry. I might be a little tired, guys. I am so sorry. Until then, everyone have a great whatever time of night or day it is in your part of the world. Stay safe, especially with the stormy weather, and stay positive. And see, that's what happened. I got to thinking about the stormy weather, and I kind of zoned out there for a minute. Peace out, people.